All right, so equations with variables on both sides. Okay, what we're going to do here is we're going to do examples. All right, just like we did with multi-step. Okay, but we're also going to take little notes. All right, so one thing to remember. Okay, we can. Whoops, that's an E. We can move variables to the other side of an equation using inverse operations. Okay, so just like we move numbers, we can move letters and variables. All right, so keep that in mind. You can move letters, all right, the same exact way you can move numbers on both sides of the equation. All right. So let's look at our first example here. So let's say we got 3y minus 7 equals 2y minus 0.5. Now what I would do is I'm going to draw my line here. Okay. The first thing that we need to make sure we do, the very first thing. So step 1, I want to move the variable to one side. Okay, so I want to get this variable on one side. And here's why. You guys are going to look at this type of equation here, and a lot of you are going to shut down because it looks like a lot is going on. All right, so what we want to do is simplify this. Now, there's not a perfect way to move a variable. Okay, so don't think, oh, I have to do it this way. No, I can move this 2y to this side, or I can move this 3y to this side. It's whatever you prefer. Okay, the thing with equations is there's a bunch of different ways to solve these equations. There's not one perfect way. Okay, so what I'm going to do, just because, like I've said, I'm OCD. I want the variable on the left. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract 2y. And why am I subtracting 2y? Because it's the opposite of positive 2y. Okay, so what I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So what I did was I subtracted 2y. All right. So what happens over here? Well, these cancel. Okay. 3y minus 2y. This is our like terms. Okay. So 3y minus 2y is just y. It's 1y. And then I bring down what's left. Minus 7 equals, one thing left over here is minus 0.5. Okay. Now, what do we notice about this equation? Well, now, since we've simplified this, okay, all that's left here, this is a one step. Okay, so step 2, all we got left here is we're just going to add 7. Okay, and what I do to one side, I do to the other. So if I add 7, I need to add 7. These cancel. All that's left is y equals, and negative 0.5 plus 7 is 6.5. And that's my final answer. All right, let's look at another one. So variables on both sides can be very similar to multi-step equations. Okay, and just you have two different variables. All right, you have variable on both sides here. So let's say I'm going to make this one kind of complicated. So we got a kind of a bigger problem to look at. So that way, if you guys see something, um, hopefully it seems easy after kind of going through something like this. So I have negative 8 times negative 8x minus 6 equals negative 6x minus 22. I'll give you guys a second to get that down. So let's make this a little bit bigger where we can see the whole page. There we go. All right, so obviously I can't just move my variable here because this side is not simplified, okay? There's something going on over here. So the reason I did this example is because if you look at this one, you're going to think, oh, if I look at this example, let's move the variable. So I'm going to go ahead and move this variable. But if you go ahead and move that variable now, you're going to make this side that much more complicated, okay? So in this particular problem, the first thing I want to do is I want to simplify this side. So step one here for this type of problem is we're going to do distributive property. Okay, so remember distributive property, everything on the outside times everything on the inside. So negative 8 times negative 8x, well, a negative times a negative is a positive, so it's going to give me 64x. Negative 8 times negative 6. Again, I'm going to repeat this every time. Don't just bring down that subtraction sign. Use your multiplication to determine what this sign is. So a negative times a negative is a positive. So this is positive 48. So positive 48 equals, then bring everything else down that we got on this side. Negative 6x minus 22. All right, so the first thing we did there was distributive property. Now that we've got that distributive property out of the way, now this right here looks a lot like this first one up here. Okay, so step 2 here, now we're going to move the variable. So I'm going to move variable to one side. Whoops, to one side. How am I going to do that? Well, like I said, you can either subtract 64 from both sides, or I can add 6x. I'm going to add 6x because I like the variable to be on the left. That's just me. Okay, so what I did was I added 6x. So once we do that, these will cancel. 64x plus 6x is 70x. Bring down what we got left here, plus 48 equals negative 22. Now we have something that we've seen before. Okay. Now we're down to, this is a two-step. All right. So my third step here, okay, we're going to get rid of this addition and subtraction. I'm going to subtract 48 from both sides. That's what I do to one side, I do to the other. These cancel. Bring down my 70x here equals negative 22 minus 48. That's going to give me negative 70. And now my last step here. Okay, I'm going to divide by 70 because this is multiplication. I'm going to divide by 70. I'm going to do to one side, I'm going to do to the other. These will cancel. All that's left is x equals negative 7 divided by 70. A negative divided by a positive is a negative. 70 divided by 70 is 1. So my answer, x equals negative 1. All right. Okay, so the next part of our notes here, we're going to look at different types of solutions. All right. So these two, if we look at these two, okay, we have y equals one number, x equals one number. These type of solutions are one solution. Okay, that's all they have is one solution. For this particular equation, the only thing this equation can equal is -1. It can't equal anything else but -1. This one can't equal anything else but 6.5. If you had 6.4 and I plug that in to check it, it's not going to work out. Okay, so types of solutions. So we just talked about one solution, okay? So one solution, this is when you have a variable equals a number, just one number, okay? That's one solution. When your variable equals a number, you have one solution, and one solution only. Okay, I'm gonna turn the page here. The next one is if we have no solution. Okay, and we're gonna do an example to show no solution. Let's say if I have negative 14x plus 14x equals 10, negative 10. So this type of equation, how would I solve this equation? Well, we would simplify this side first, all right, because these both have an x, and then negative 14 plus 14 is 0. So 0x equals negative 10. Well, anything times 0 is what? It's 0. So this side would just be 0. So you have to ask yourself here, can 0 equal negative 10? No, 0 cannot equal negative 10. All right, so no solution. This can be when both sides are not, and I want you to underline the word not, are not equal, okay? And most of the time you'll have no variable. All right, so like if I had an answer that said 4 equals 7, 4 cannot equal 7, so that equation would have no solution. All right. And the last example is infinite solutions. Infinite solutions. This happens when both sides equal each other. Okay, when both sides equal each other. And here's what an example would look like for that. Let's say I have I don't know, let's say we have 7x plus 5 equals 7x plus 5. Okay, obviously both sides, this is 7x plus 5, 7x plus 5. But let's say you didn't notice that from the start and you went ahead and tried to solve this, all right? So if I draw my line here, okay, I'm going to subtract 7x from both sides. I'll do to one side, I'm going to do to the other. Well, those cancel. Well, these right here, well, they're going to cancel too. So all that can be left over here is 5 equals, bring down what's left over here is 5. And you're like, hold up, I don't have a variable here. 5 equals 5. Well, does 5 equal 5? Yes, 5 will always equal 5. Therefore, both sides are equal. So this right here would have infinite solutions. Okay, so you can have, it doesn't matter, I could say x equals 4, and this will always work out. X could equal 1268. This will always work out. Okay. Up here, nothing will work for this. No matter what x is, it will never, ever, ever work for that. All right. So you have one solution, no solution, and infinite solutions. Let me underline that right there. Infinite solutions. Okay. Those three different types of solutions. So just to review, all right, we've done equation with variables on both sides. We want to make sure that we get that variable to one side, okay? Whether it's our first step or if it's our second or third step, all right? Simplify first, then get that variable over, all right? Make sure you have that variable to one side. Once you get that variable to one side, now you either have a multi-step equation, two-step, or a one-step, okay?